she's ready.
Thank you.
Here, now we're ready for a regular work session. First, we have a couple of proclamations, which we'll do next week. Now we'll just go right down the list if it's okay with you, Council.
Sure.
First is the consideration of the sale of the property locally known as 312 South 10th Street, Burlington, Iowa, with conditions.
Show a map here if we could put up the overhead. This again is a property acquired through our abandoned building program located just north of Maple Street. Between Elm and Maple Street on the east side of 10th Street. This is a 4-bedroom, 1-bath home, 40 by 105 foot lot. Does need some work on the property. Looks fairly good from the outside. Does have a lot of junk on the inside that needs to be cleaned out. Some electrical, plumbing upgrades. There is a garage on the property, but does need work as well. Kind of the typical condition that we receive the homes in, but something that is a home that could be rehabbed. Again, 4-bedroom, 1-bath, and put back into good use.
Do we have any bids on this yet?
Currently have one bid on the property and others interested in it.
Okay. So we'll have an auction then
Yeah.
Monday's meeting. Okay. Questions, Council?
No.
Anything else on that, Eric?
Nope.
Okay. Next, we have a consideration of sale of property located known as 425 Hageman Avenue, Burlington, with conditions.
This is located at the northwest corner of Amelia and Hageman. It's a vacant lot. The city demolished the home quite a number of years ago, 8-10 years ago, acquired the lot just a couple years ago through tax certificate. Have had some interest in the property, but no one's come forward to purchase the lot until Southeast Iowa Housing Inc. Did make an offer to purchase it and build a new home on the property. Similar to the home they rehabbed on South 9th Street, having similar conditions and covenants, would have to be constructed and sold to an owner-occupied individual meeting the 80% median income guidelines. So would be able to get into a home ownership situation with this lot and have a new home on the lot that has been vacant for over 10 years. Currently, that's the only offer on the property. Staff would recommend any offer meet those same conditions of building a new home, being sold to an income qualified homeowner.
So I assume that means there has to be some limit on the price or value of the house that they build.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how they can or individual qualifying for a new home, but they do have grants and other programs that are available for them to buy down the
Right. Okay.
homeowner assistance cost for them.
Okay. I just drove by that house on South 9th on my way here, and that turned out really nicely,
Mhm.
so I have confidence that this group's going to do something good over there.
Yeah.
Questions, comments, Council? Moving on. Public hearing, consideration of an ordinance rezoning outlot 3 of the Swisher subdivision from R1 Single Family Residential to R2 Single Family Residential Transitional District.
This is the outlot Mr. Cahill's looking to subdivide. Currently it's zoned R1, single-family residential, looking to rezone to R2, which is the zoning to the north and predominantly along West Avenue. That would allow a mix of single-family and two-family or condominium dwellings. If he so desires, he had expressed interest in having maybe 4 condo or duplexes on the west side of the development. Also includes the lot just to the west of that on West Avenue. As you can see, there is R4 multifamily. Sunrise West is predominantly all duplex condominium as well, just to the east and south of this property. So it does fit with our future land use map. Did go to the Planning Commission, was voted 3-0 with 1 abstain to recommend approval of the rezoning of the city council based on the planned use as single-family and two-family, location adjacent to R2, and current designation on the future land use map that allows R1 and R2 zoning.
Someone who lives near there wanted me to ask to make sure that a quadplex could not be built there.
No, just single-family and two-family is the most it could allow.
Yeah. Okay, anyone? You okay? See any issues? Okay. All right, the next public hearing is consideration of ordinance amending section B, land use design criteria of ordinance number 3104 of the Burlington Senior Living Campus PUD.
This is it's the Rosebush Gardens Assisted Living on West Avenue, just to the east of Gear. This was rezoned in 1998 to a PUD to allow their current use. In that PUD in 1998, it did specify that the front setback for the front parcel should be 175 feet from West Avenue, which is much greater than our typical zoning requirements of 30 feet for R1 and 25 for R2, R3, and R4. The current owner is looking to do an addition to the property on the north side of the current structure, and has requested to amend the PUD to allow a 30-foot front yard setback, which would match our current zoning designation as R1, the setback requirements in that district. So this again went to the Planning Commission on September 19th, and they voted 4-0 to recommend approval based on the request of the applicant, continuity with surrounding land use regulations, and conformance to the zoning code.
Sounds okay to me. How about you guys?
It's fine with me.
Just wonder why it was ever changed before, do you know?
I'm not sure if that was the applicant's request at the time, just to have more front yard open space, or why that was stated that way.
Okay. I don't see any issue there. Next public hearing is consideration of plans and specs for the Flint Hills Golf Course Pump House project.
This is the pump house project, replacing the existing irrigation pump system at the Flint Hills Golf Course. Something we've had in previous years' budgets, spread over a couple years, trying to phase it in. Replace that with the current year's budget, just one project, doing it at once. So we're looking to, again, replace the pump house, the system there for our irrigation at the golf course. Looking to have bids by Tuesday, October 10th. Have had some discussions with contractors on this, and then having completion, or starting the project after November 15th of this year, completing by March 15th of 2018.
Do we have an estimate?
We have 120,000 budgeted. Previous year's estimates, I think from 2 years ago, is right a little over 105,000. So it's right at that amount that we're budgeting for this year.
Okay. Questions, council?
Not here.
Breezing right along here. All right, the next public hearing is consideration of an ordinance amending section 126.16, financial responsibility of chapter 126, taxi cabs and vehicles for hire of the Burlington Municipal Code. Looks like Major Kramer has this one.
Yeah. I believe this went into effect January 1, actually, of this year, and it requires all motor vehicles providing taxi cab services having a seating capacity of less than 7 passengers and not operating on a regular route between specified points shall maintain primary automobile insurance in the amount of at least $1 million because of bodily injury to or death. And this was part of the change at the beginning of this year, and I think it was overlooked when we initially did the ordinance.
Okay.
amendment.
Again, as a reminder, the state made a lot of changes to
Yes.
their code sections dealing with this, primarily to try to figure out how to accommodate for Uber, Lyft type services coming into the state. This is one of the things that, in setting some of the insurance amounts, that this one is a specific amount set by state statute. We cannot alter from state statute on this, so we have to make sure we come into conformity
It has
with
to
it.
be one, it can't be 2 million, it has to be one.
Correct.
And I believe we notified the taxi cab services here in town. I believe Chief Beard did that before he left.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Major. Questions, council, anything about that? Doesn't seem like
Kind of
anything,
sounds like
pretty
it's
routine. but-
pretty what it is.
Okay, next is the public hearing, consideration of a proposed 2017 amendment to the Burlington Urban Revitalization Plan.
This changes to essentially the tax abatement program that's in place for the neighborhood development, urban revitalization area, which incorporates the downtown and neighborhoods to the south of downtown. As part of the sale of the Apollo property, it was discussed with their purchase agreement that we would amend this plan in lieu of doing a TIF agreement or TIF rebate for that area, that they would qualify for the 10-year tax abatement. So this brings in the Apollo property and then the block to the north where the city owns some land as well. The area in red is what is being added to that, and then extending the timeframe. There was a 5-year sunset on that initial tax payment. Extending that 4 more years to June 2nd, 2023 would be the expiration of this time tax abatement program unless otherwise amended by council.
Okay.
Is that for just that area or the whole?
The whole area.
Okay.
Yep.
The extension, you mean,
The
Becky?
timeframe extension covers the
Timeframe
entire area.
extension,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Council? Eric, anything? Okay. Next is a resolution awarding contract for the 2017 Jefferson Street parking improvements.
So we went out to bid and received 2 bids back. We did a base bid and we did an alternative bid. The difference between the base and an alternative was the time frame of when the project would start. So the base bid was yet this fall and the alternative bid was next spring. We received 2 bids, one only for this fall and then 2 for next spring. MG Daily at $116,130.72, the same for both fall and spring. We would like to award bid to them for this fall yet. We're trying to get it in the plans, get the contract set up early so we can get that work started right away in October.
How long do you think it'll take?
A little bit over a month,
A little over a month.
depending on what
4 or
weather
5
does.
weeks.
That's
Yeah.
good, yeah.
So it'll add it'll be a total of 19 spots.
I think that's been needed a long time there.
It's slightly over estimate.
Slightly overestimate. The initial the estimate was at 112,000 most recently, so 4,000 over.
Okay,
You have money for that?
Yes.
Okay.
We're gonna, this project as well as a later one that Nick has on for the Central Street Bridge.
Correct.
We're doing the engineering work on that. The bridge itself is looking to be about a $350,000 project to do all the different components that they're recommending to get accomplished. Would look to pay for both of those out of we have a residential street overlay account. It's essentially miscellaneous street projects. We did not budget that high for this account. We had $350,000 budgeted to go in there with a carryover balance of just shy of $200,000. So we have about $550,000 set to be there to deal with projects this year. We have 3 projects that need to go through here that are on books right now. Jefferson Street is one, Central Street Bridge repairs is the second, and then Patterson Street repair.
yeah.
That washout still needs to get done. So we'll end up having to transfer, to make all of these projects happen, about $200,000 more than we had originally planned on from road use tax. That's an unbudgeted amount, and we'll have to end up adjusting all of our transfers to accommodate that. However, road use tax has just a little over $2 million coming into the fiscal year. It has adequate funds to accommodate the additional work that needs done.
Good.
And so when I've been on the radio and they've asked what do we do when our snow budget is lower than what we'd anticipated spending, this is what ends up happening with those funds, is we
Yeah.
have it available to do a couple of projects that weren't
Okay,
previously
so
identified.
keep another winter like last winter and we'll have some more.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
I'm working on that. Jim.
Okay, all right, good. Good, while you're there, can I ask about the new parking lot to the south of the police station?
Yes,
Where that stands?
that'll be packaged with 6th and Washington. We have not got the 6th and Washington Street project, the parking lot designed yet. We'll be packaging them together to bid out, is more work, can try and get a cheaper cost for both of them done at the same time. That'll be likely this winter, spring.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else, council, on that? Thank you, Jim. Okay, resolution approving the preliminary plat of Park West subdivision. Okay, Mr. Tisland.
This again is the area that Mr. Cahill is looking to develop off of West Avenue that we previously discussed, rezone from R1 to R2. Looking at 16 lots with a entry drive off of West Avenue, connecting up to the property to the south of that to allow future street connection through this development. That would eventually connect up to, there's quite a few dead-end streets in the area of this, I guess, undeveloped land, allowing future connection for those streets. Is providing for detention in the north west corner, and then the public street going north-south.
Planning Commission.
Yeah, this went to the planning commission as well, and they voted 3-0 with 1 abstain to recommend approval to the city council.
Do we know if that other street's going to be connecting, or is there because there's no turnaround down there? I mean, there's always
There's
that
a
question.
easement for turnaround at the bottom, temporary turnaround at the bottom of this development.
Okay.
Mr. Cahill has talked to Moorfield that owns the lot to the south, who's doing 2 current developments in Fort Madison, and is something he plans to do, whether it's himself or partnering with someone else. Kind of depends on the timing there, but it is.
You have had conversations with him, have you, with Marfeld?
Mr. Cahill has, and we've talked about that, about the
Okay.
future development of that area.
And so where would the street end up going south then, assuming that he developed it?
Fortunately, don't have a full map. I can bring that in front of me, but this would connect up to the area in Sunrise West. They're currently going to be connecting Cambridge to their north property line.
Okay,
And then the Jerry Von Baron, the owner of the property to the east of this, also has some stake in how this all
Right.
develops. There's some dead ends on his property. So we're trying to work with 3 or 4 different property owners on making sure how they lay out their developments, everything lines up and allows for future street connections.
so, but it's not going all the way to Mason
It
Road?
won't go straight through to Mason Road. It'll connect up to, and I forget the Dill Street that dead ends, and
Yeah,
Garden that dead ends there. Those will all connect up, and then
Are they
Jim
gonna say
Kelly.
eventually we go to Sequoia then?
Yeah, Sequoia, Gilbert, Jim Kelly Drive are all
Okay.
east-west streets that dead end currently that'll cross through, and how that all lays out.
So he'll have to put a temporary turnaround until that is, the rest of it's
There's an
developed?
easement for a temporary turnaround down there, yep.
okay. That's all good, as far as I'm
It's a
concerned.
big project.
Yeah. You okay, folks?
Oh.
You sure? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that the street goes all the way through.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things is you've talked about using TIF for, Dan Cahill came in and made that request. We're looking to present a plan, or present an urban renewal or
Renewal plan.
revitalization.
Urban renewal plan.
That would encapsulate all the properties that would have to be part of it to get the street network in,
Yeah.
that he's
You
mentioning.
have to do that.
So that you have that incentive there available to all of them, but probably at the same time having some level of requirements that they help make those connections work at the
Sure.
same time.
Absolutely. Okay, anything else there on that one? Next is a resolution approving the final plat of the 15th addition to Flint Ridge Business Park subdivision.
This is a one-lot subdivision on the northwest corner of West Burlington Avenue and West Avenue, just to the northwest of the current cul-de-sac, which is located here, being subdivided by the Greater Burlington Partnership. And one lot, 9.58 acres, there at the corner of the two streets. When they did the platting, they found that West Avenue hadn't formally been platted out, so they have a Lot A showing the West Avenue right-of-way for, that is part of the city, but again, no new infrastructure needed to access the site. It does have access off West Burlington Avenue there. And then the hashed line there is the property that the city previously acquired for the roundabout.
Are there possible plans for that property, or you just?
We haven't,
Yeah.
our department hasn't seen plans yet, but this is generally a first step in something.
But they're working on
Good.
it. Yeah.
I like that sound. Any questions about this one? Comments? No? All right, then the final one is a resolution approving agreement between the City of Burlington, Iowa, and Burlington Post 52 of the American Legion for use of banquet rooms, storage areas, and an office at Memorial Auditorium.
So this is the lease that was presented, I think, 2 weeks ago at work session, so with the Marines, not the Marines, sorry, the American Legion. So I know we have a representative here. He could, I think he has some requests or some items that he wants to discuss with you regarding the lease, so.
How you doing? I just want to say sorry for not making the last work session, but I asked.
I don't know what, tell us your name, will you?
Mike Wilson.
Mike, thank you.
But I've been talking with Stephanie and Jim about this, and there's a couple of points that the members of the American Legion have problems with, and I'd like to go over those. But first, I don't know if everybody knows the history of the auditorium with the American Legion, just so that you know, they're just not another tenant of the auditorium. Back in the day, back in 1938, we sent delegates out to Washington, D.C. to get funding for the auditorium, in which it was then passed. And then in 1939, when it was built, the American Legion held formal dedication to the post for the new post home, at which time the Burlington's mayor, Max Conrad, gave the American Legion Post 52 with the gold key for the city's appreciation for their outstanding efforts in securing financing for the building of the auditorium. Instead of selling our former hall, which is now Apple Trees Museum, we gave that to the city so we could have a place to meet every month. So over the years, though, in each of the contract, the city has slowly taken things out of our contract. At one time, we had, it was our lounge, it was our banquet room, recreation room, and the kitchen and stuff like that, which we held like a bar type of thing in there. That has slowly went away. You know, one of the big times when the last big flood we had down there and they had to redo the whole downstairs, there's a lot of artifacts that got thrown out that was just by mistake, and that was thrown away with a bunch of the other stuff that was damaged in the flood. And the redesign of the downstairs, our area shrunk considerably. Now, this contract, we're just down to one, maybe two closet areas, and then we're stuck in that one banquet room, C, I do believe. But the biggest thing is in contract number, the number 16 in that contract. I don't know if you guys got the contract in front of you.
Yes, we do.
Yep.
Okay, it says either party may terminate this agreement without cause by providing 120 days notice to the other in writing. To the guys in my group, that is a way, they view with the slowly taking things away from the American Legion over the years, it's kind of like the city's pushing us out of the auditorium. That's how they feel. I mean, you can think of how, you know, how you are when you serve this country and then you come back and you had something and then slowly every contract, they take something out of it. And then in this contract, you put that in there, it says without cause. So it's just you saying, as soon as we sign it, you guys can say, okay, get out. And then we have 120 days notice to get out. And then, I mean, we don't have anything to show for it. Where would we meet? We gave you Apple Trees Museum unless you're gonna give this back to us. You know, anyway, so our members, they also are members of the 40 and 8, which is behind the Bees Ballpark.
Yep.
And they said which we lease that ground to no cost to the city as well for the community field sits on. So that's another thing. And they said if you absolutely positively have to have this, either party may terminate this agreement if you need to have that in there. They would like to open up the contract with the city on that ground and put that in the very bottom of its contract as well. Which I understand, Jim has said, the reason why they put that in there is because you guys didn't know the fate of the Memorial Auditorium and you didn't want to hold us. But yet we are giving you, and we don't know the fate of what you guys would do. So it's kind of like the way to protect us, just like that you put this in to protect you. Okay? And the timeline, they said, when we gave it to you, the timeline for the community field, I think back in 2005, I do believe, we gave you an extension for 59 years of holding that property for nothing. Yet, every 3 years, we have to come before you and agree to a contract you seem to be taking things out of every year, every 3 years. So we'd like to extend past 3 years, say 10 years, so we don't have to come before you very often to see what we have to do. I mean, also in this contract, you guys put in that you need liability insurance now. And I'm working with kind of a backdoor way with the insurance guy on that, with trying, since we do also meet down there with the 40 and 8th Park right after our meeting down there. So trying to see if our current product, our current liability insurance out the park will cover our stuff like that. But if it does raise our rates, would the city be willing to pay that increase? Is a question to you to cover that. And also, because over in the past years, we have never had to have that insurance
Right.
over countless. And I can understand where you guys are coming from, and everybody's too happy in this world. But do you really think veterans are gonna sue the city over something? And I asked the insurance company exactly what it would cover. And he said it would only cover the guy as soon as he goes through our door. So he's in our room. So if he falls down walking to our meeting, it's still the city's liability.
Right.
We're in that room less than 24 hours for the entire year. And for paying $250, I think the city went out and got a quote at one time, and I think that's what they said. Is that true, Jim?
Yes.
So, I mean, for $250 for less than 24 hours, it seems kind of steep. Now, hopefully I can work with the insurance, and insurance will let me do that. But I imagine there would be some to little cost for that. I think that's all I have, is those two items. We don't have in the contract, we don't have an office in there. All we have is a meeting room, which is comprised of that, I think that bar area. And then we have the closet off the bar area, and then one closet off the main banquet room. We used to have another one, but that was taken away 3 years ago.
And how often do you meet?
We meet once a month.
Once a month.
And what's the size of your membership?
The size of the membership, we are 63 people, but like all veterans organizations, we have a hard time getting people down to the meetings, just because of age and stuff like that. We have we have a World War II vet that comes down every month.
Yeah.
And then we have a bunch of Korean vets and stuff like that. So the amount of people that show up, I would say range is only probably about 8 people. I mean, it's really, really little. And so it's kind of a struggle to get the guys in there. But the one thing we do is an early bird dinner, which is coming up in November, and which is it's kind of like a thank you to them for being part of the Legion, and we give it to like a Thanksgiving meal to them for free and stuff.
So, do you have membership dues, or how do you
We
finance
do have
what you're
membership
doing?
dues, and it goes to American Legion. They're a national organization, and they put the dues out, and what they is like everything else. You have some of your dues goes national, and some
Right,
of them stay
right.
local and stuff like that. We keep our dues pretty low. I think it's $50, and I think most of that goes to national, and then we keep our little bit here. So, in which there's a lot of things that scholarships and stuff like that money goes to, nursing, and we've done certain things around here for, with American Legion. We've done the flags in the library recently, out there in West Burlington, that Veterans Park.
Right.
Yep.
We dedicated the national flag. That we put that pole up in our flag there, or not our flag, but
Right,
flag
right.
stuff.
So do you have fundraisers, or you voluntary donations, or how do you
we-
pay for what you do?
We don't do a lot of fundraisers. We're trying to do more, but I'm the youngest.
I was gonna say, what-
So
it's
doing a
hard to do.
fundraiser is saying I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, with 8 people, yeah, that's.
So,
I
but,
understand.
yes, we try and whole thing. One of the recent ones is Walgreens. They did like one of their, when you check out, they ask you if you wanted to donate $1. They do that for us, and
Well, that's
we get
nice.
a little bit of money from them, and
Yeah.
which is nice
Right.
and stuff. Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mike, and thank you for serving.
No problem.
What do you suggest, Jim?
Out of the points, these were added by our city attorney and have been added to most of our contracts with different groups. And, the one on the liability side is one that really is there to protect the city and our community as a whole. And wouldn't recommend making a change on that. You could certainly make a decision to do something on his request that you pay for it. However, we don't do that for any of the other groups that we ask or require to have insurance down there, including the Marines. The 120 days notice is one that, the main reason that I would think that you'd want something like this in here is if you do look to close the auditorium down. If you're in a position where you're saying that we're not looking to close that down in 6 months, but you may consider it, say, 3 years down the road, you'd be in a position where you could say that that's a term that you wouldn't need to have in here, given that it is a 3-year contract. However, one of the things that will come up at the October 12th meeting, combined meeting with planning and zoning, that's one where through the Brownfields assessment grant that we have, the contractor on that is, one of the things they're going to be talking about is catalyst sites. Is that the right term? This has been identified as one of those catalyst sites. What happens with this area long term? How do you look to handle it long term? It's seen as a spot to be at least considered for how you're going to utilize this in a way that magnifies your waterfront. Do you continue to operate it the way it is? Do you look to enhance what you do down there? Do you look to do something different with that site? Because they're identifying it from an outsider's perspective as one of the spots that we're not necessarily using to the best advantage, I think is a correct way to, I haven't been involved in those discussions, but, and it kind of matches the discussions you've had over the last few months with the auditorium. What is the long-term usage of that spot? You know, given the funding that we received a few years ago, it doesn't make sense at this time to demolish it and do something different with that site. And that's one of the things that we brought up, that it didn't even make sense for you to consider that. However, you get 3 years down the road and you're still under funding constraints, and maybe it does. Maybe part of that discussion as a catalyst site is are there ways to have a different structure there that meets the needs of all the groups that are currently using it, but maybe in a different way than what it currently does? Or maybe there's a different discussion. It's hard to know, because this isn't the council that's going to be here at that point. I mean, it's going to be a discussion, I think, that's going to go on for over the course of the next few years. And you need to make sure that you have options that are available to do it, and which is one of the concerns I'd have about entertaining the idea of extending it beyond that 3-year. Because now you're making it more difficult to do something different, to consider
agree
doing
with
something.
that.
That seems
Yeah.
to me to be one or the other. Either you want a 10-year, but then you'd have to have the 120 in there, or you can leave it 3-year
Yeah.
and don't put the 120.
Probably the thing that I don't like about the 120, maybe you can explain what it says without cause.
It's
I
giving
mean,
you the freedom to do something different.
120, I mean, if there's cause, I think that's okay, but without cause, I
Our-
guess it would bother me if
Yeah,
it were
our
only
current
on the others.
contract, as he mentions, out the 40 and 8, it's not a both parties have the 120 days without cause, but the city can terminate the agreement for renting that with a 120 days notice without cause. And it's very similar to what we had with Venue Works. We had the right, after the first 3 years of that agreement, to
without
terminate with
cause.
120 days without cause.
Well, I guess I'm wondering if you were doing something different down there, wouldn't that be cause or not?
I don't know that, I mean,
We're
that's
getting
typically
legal.
it's cause that someone has done something incorrect is what you're usually,
Is that what it means? Okay.
usually what you term. but-
Okay, maybe I just don't understand the term then, so.
But if you, given a timeframe with it, I think that you can do it, but you do need to be cognizant with different agreements that you have in place. Each one that you enter has a different time frame, and if you are trying to do something at some specified period in the future, and you have all different agreements that have various termination dates, you're bound by the latest one that's out there. And if you never have a fixed window where those happen, that's kind of what the 120 days allows you. If you have it in all of those, you have the ability, if something does come up and you have to change what you're doing, you can make it occur. Bless you.
Just to let you know, the Marines is actually the same time frame as this one, because we've always done them at the same time. So you'll see this one has the expiration date of May 1st, 2017. The Marines we approved their agreement back in June. That's when we started working on these. So we've leaving the terms the same, so they will end at the same time in the 3 years. And they have the 3 years with the 120 days. Their agreement is identical.
Okay.
They just approved it. We knew that they were fine with it, and we've just been kind of
Okay.
having discussions with Mike on this one. So they will end at the same time if this one gets
Okay.
approved.
Yeah.
Well, I think he brought up good points, but I do think that it is always out there that something, that's, maybe things will change down there because
Yeah.
it does cost a lot of money to maintain that building.
Mike has a comment.
It's true that the Marine Corps and the Allegiance is the same agreement. The only problem being is that the Marine Corps gave you guys nothing. We gave you Apple Trees Museum. So, I mean, that was way back when, I know, but, I mean, we gave you something. And the city council at that time said that we were gonna be in that building forever. you know, pretty much. I mean,
Yeah.
that was our
Yeah.
new home for our meetings. And then now, 2017, we're here and you're saying it may. I mean, I understand that if you guys want to do something else with that property, we're not saying that if you close everything else, we're not going to make you keep it open for us. But you understand where that without cause comes into play. It's like,
Sure.
if you sign it, we can kick you out anytime we want.
Yeah.
And old men, they don't like that.
Yeah, it's understandable. I shouldn't say that we trading back apple trees. No, I won't say that. Okay, what's your pleasure, council?
Do we have other contracts that are for longer periods of time than 3 years? I mean, could we,
I mean, it depends on the contract. We just did the Big Muddies lease. That was a new 25-year lease, and you got a different context. They're leasing the
Right.
land from us to have a building on, and you just have a new business that went in there. And he's trying to make sure as he purchases it, that there's the ability to cash flow it and to cover a loan. We have others that are annual. You have what's the Saunderson Park that's on here?
It's a 20-year lease with the school district.
Where we lease that park, the land from them to have a city park on it. I mean, depends on, I mean, you can find all different lengths of leases for structures within a city.
I think we have to stick with this, though. You know, these notices are two-way, too. The Legion, with 120, could decide they wanted to move someplace, and, you know.
I guess the most
yeah,
standard.
but that's not really any, like, for them to just say, oh, we're gonna leave, it's not really at a huge loss for us, but for us
No.
to say, get out, that is a huge loss for them, and so that's where I can understand where it really,
Well, I understand that,
The-
but putting emotion aside,
I'm not,
we have to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
Because that auditorium belongs to the community.
absolutely.
It's a big building.
I guess the only other lease that I can think of that is a comparable type lease separate from this facility would be the senior center. And that, I think, is a 3-year lease too.
We just updated that one too.
What's that?
I
It's
think
what?
it was 3.
3?
Yeah.
Oh, Nick says it's 3 years, yeah.
And that, for those types of leases, it is a fairly standard length.
Fairly standard, yeah.
I personally don't have, as long as it's gonna stay 3 years, I don't have a problem deleting item 16. That doesn't cause me great heartache, because if and when any council decides they wanna close the auditorium, it's gonna take more than a year or two to get it done anyway, so.
I like that.
I do too.
But the insurance thing, I don't see if we can get rid of that, 'cause
Right.
that's a standard thing we have to have.
Would you consider paying it?
I personally wouldn't, but
Will our attorney have a problem if we do have this? No.
I guess the question I would have is if we pay that, are we gonna get asked to pay other
Probably.
liability insurance, so. Not that we wouldn't like to, but it's just, might open the door up to a lot of requests like that.
okay, we have a consensus then, and we could drop item 16. Do we need to have a motion to amend then for?
We'll
or
just
you
modify it.
change Okay. Otherwise, everything's going to be the same?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do gotta put that in front of my members,
Right,
you know, to be approved for next,
yeah,
I mean, we meet on the 3rd, so we meet next Wednesday.
Yeah.
And, which is after your guys'.
I think the council will approve this from their side one way or another, whether you choose to sign or not would be
Right. Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Okay, we got that, all right, we move on. Thank you, Steph, thank you, Mike. Consent agenda, nuisance abatements, as normal thing here.
Show you another.
How many, 4 pages, 3.5? Resolution approving a refund of liquor license for Mississippi Freight House Corp. doing business as Big Muddies. I assume this is the previous owner?
Correct.
And just change of ownership.
Right, okay, no problems there. Resolution approving purchase of a street flushing unit for Public Works, Street and Sewer Division. Seems like Public Works is getting an awful lot of new equipment, doesn't it, guys?
This resolution will purchase a street flushing unit, and I have an image, so if you're wondering what a street flushing unit looks like. So what it involves is we're going to, we have a chassis that we're going to put the tank and the flushing gear on, and it looks similar to that, except for ours is only single axle. We had a budget of $70,000. Through state bid, came in at $53,531, so $16,000 under budget. So
Didn't I see something like that down on Jefferson flushing some, or?
you maybe have. We have one.
We have one. and it's-
No, you saw the reel in the back. You saw the combo truck.
Okay,
We've been working on some sewer on Jefferson Street
yeah,
there.
I thought it had a big tank like that.
Yep, it does have a tank.
Okay.
For the jet unit.
It looked, yeah.
Yep.
We have one of these currently. What year is that?
1981.
Oh,
It's older than me.
Probably overdue.
It might be time.
What, I didn't hear what you. A lot of things are older than you, Nick. A lot of people are too. Oh, well. Okay, counsel, okay.
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Come on there.
Resolution approving a professional service agreement from Stanley Consultants to perform design of the Central Avenue Bridge retaining wall rehab.
So the resolution in front of you will, actually Jesse did a slideshow for me, and I guess I didn't realize that. So we did bridge inspections in 2016. As you will notice, there was a wing wall that had some bricks laying up against the side of it to
Right.
hold it up. It wasn't really holding it up. If you want to hit the next slide. So what is called for is 3 different levels of work to bring some of the conditions back into a status that'll help preserve the life of the bridge. I think I've said this before, but I want to re-clarify. There's nothing wrong with the bridge from a structural standpoint. There are just things that we need to do to continue the lifespan of it. And so one of those things is the gap between the bridge decking and the approach. A lot of that's worn away, and you can see that there. The estimate, since it's on this page, and I know there's pictures on the next, well, maybe there's only one slide, is $52,902, which is a not to exceed dollar figure. I don't likely see engineering fees costing that much. When they bill back on an hourly basis, they'll have more of a clue. But the total estimate of the work is $293,000. And as we spoke about earlier, would come from road use tax and the miscellaneous fund. The images are a little hard to see, but you can see some of the wing wall problems that are going on. There's major water going in through there and causing some cracking. And so I think the last section, there's 3 sections of work that they broke out that we would do. The third would attack these retaining walls to help keep degradation and erosion happening from around the bridge. So I would recommend approval. And we're using Stanley, who did who's doing our Mount Pleasant Street
yeah.
design work, and as well as did the investigation into this early on.
Well, this seems to be a good thing because there's an erroneous opinion out there by some folks that we don't maintain our properties, and I think this is a good thing to do.
and I was gonna say that too, because is that why we lost Cascade Bridge? Because we didn't maintain it?
No,
No, it's not.
no. It's 100 and
You have a life cycle on a
Well,
on a
some people say
project-
that, and
on
I'm
a
thinking
product
we need to
anyway.
maintain our bridges, is
Yeah,
all I
I-
wanted to say.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Nick. Okay. Next on the consent agenda, a resolution approving the creation and implementation of Healthy Neighborhoods Program by the Community Development Department. Mr. Nichols.
So this council and previous councils has made it a goal to improve the appearance of the community. There's pockets scattered throughout town where obviously properties and neighborhoods have declined and they don't look as good as they once used to. And we've traditionally responded to that by nuisance enforcement, and we just hired a new part-time nuisance officer to increase that, which is good. We can get a lot done there. But nuisance enforcement can only set a bar on a property appearance. You're never going to make a neighborhood look beautiful, but you can make it look okay. So this program is taking a bit of a different approach to that, looking at breaking some of the disinvestment cycles that occur in neighborhoods. And what I mean by a disinvestment cycle is, say somebody temporarily loses their job, they're not able to paint their house, the paint starts peeling and chipping, and it looks like the house looks worse and it kind of degrades the value of the neighborhood a bit. Their neighbor might see that and say, okay, they're not putting money into their property, I'm not going to put money into my property because I'm not going to get it back. Now say that same person who lost their job then gets a new one and sees that their neighbor has stopped maintaining their property. They might decide to just let their property go, and then maybe someone across the street sees these two people not maintaining their properties and they decide not to maintain theirs because they won't get their investment back. So eventually you have these areas where this keeps snowballing and snowballing, and you have a cycle of disinvestment that just traps these pockets in this continuing cycle where people aren't putting money into their properties. So this program, what it would do is if you can get at least 5 property owners together in a block or a 2-block area to do exterior improvements such as painting, siding, a new porch, new landscaping, we would match the first $1,000 of investment for each of those property owners on those projects. You would infuse new money into the neighborhood. You would improve the appearance of a small area all in one go. You would build partnerships between neighbors who would be working together to get this money and then to improve their properties. Now, I'm not asking for money for this program right now. I will come back during budgeting time to talk about that. But what I'm asking for now is that the council just approve the outlines and the bones of this program, because we are asking for money from community foundations, and I want to go to them and say the council is okay with this, so if they want to give us money, this program is in place and they can trust that we will use it on this program. And there is, you have the map with you, Eric.
Yeah, Annette, could you switch over?
So I would like to concentrate this activity in this area, which is about 90% of Burlington. There are a few areas, there's a few areas left out, and I'll explain why I did this. So we're asking for contributions from local banks, and for local banks to give money, they have to qualify under the Community Reinvestment Act, which says that they need to invest in low and moderate income neighborhoods. Now, all of Burlington is not low and moderate income, but many of our neighborhoods are. So everything in this red area is 52% low to moderate income, which is above their 51% cutoff. So I'm limiting it to this area mainly because our problem areas are inner Burlington, and because if we want to get banks to contribute, we need to keep it above 51% LMI.
That's good.
I like this.
Good thinking.
I hope this works.
But is 5 too many?
So this isn't our original idea. Unfortunately, we can't claim that. We borrowed it from Oswego, New York, who has been doing this for about 5 years now, and they have 5 properties as their limit. They've had good success with that. Often they see more than 5 property owners come forward, and they've had so much success that it's so competitive they actually have to limit the number of people they can give money to, and the amount of property owners you can get in one area is one of those factors they use to score applications. So I think 5 is a good number. If we don't see that many people come forward, then we could look at making it lower than that.
I think that's a good number. So let me get this straight. So each of the 5 would get $1,000?
Yes, for their project.
So like if there's 5 houses on a street and they all want to paint their houses, they could all get $1,000 towards painting their house?
Yep, and maybe one property buys paint that's very expensive and it's $5,000, we would reimburse $1,000. Maybe one property only does their porch and it's a $500 project, and they would only get $500 from us in that case. It's a one-to-one
Depends
match
on the
up to
market.
Oh,
$1,000.
1-to-1, up to 1,000, okay. Well, good, I think that
I
sounds
think it's a
good.
great idea.
We've had a lot of positive response from the community foundations and banks that I've sent funding requests to, so hopefully we can get some community support behind this.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Keep up the good work. All right, the next item, Jim, did you say it was going to be pulled off of the agenda?
Yeah, we had a request to pull this off until the following meeting. They just wanted to delay it for 2 weeks.
Okay, so we'll drop that one off the consent agenda. That was item 6. The 7th is to set a public hearing date for October 16th for consideration of a lease agreement between the City of Burlington and Burlington Community School District for use of Saunderson Park at 1310 Valley Street. All right, discussion items. Mrs. Crowner, are you doing the budget this time again? Treasurer's report?
Okay, again, there's 2 treasurer's reports in your packet. June's, because we're still working on it, and nothing, I mean, I've accrued everything back now. So I think, for the most part, that the numbers that are in front of you should be good, unless I run across something else that we have to move around, but, so June, that's June. And I didn't know if you guys had any questions. I mean, it hasn't really, it's improved from last time.
Improvement is good.
And then August is also in your packet. So I would say August, like revenues, a lot of those, again, get accrued back. I was still accruing things back. So when you get to that, the revenue sheet that shows like the percentage, the ideal percentage where we're supposed to be,
Right.
those are kind of skewed because of what we accrue back that
Sure.
belongs back to last year. But nothing that's out of the ordinary. And
Okay. Do you remember the days
Hmm?
Bob and Becky went with all those parentheses were around everything?
Yeah.
Isn't it great to see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It is. It gets better every year.
yeah.
Yes,
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, council.
You do have a lot of extra cash sitting in different projects right now. We've got money borrowed for the PD building that's got
Yeah.
$4 million for that project that still hasn't been spent. We've got $5 million for the flood wall that still hasn't been spent.
But that will be being
Those
spent,
will-
so
Just
don't think that
sitting
there's
there.
huge
Yeah.
numbers sitting out there, they're all spoken for.
Don't get big eye, wow.
Yeah, no, they're for projects going on, and, and then like some of the other things that are in the capital projects that have, that we don't have money in right now is because there's timing issues. It's grant money or loan proceeds that we're gonna get, or,
Mhm.
but nothing that stands out that we don't have, that we don't know where that money's coming from or going to.
Like the RISE grant thing is coming through too, right?
Yeah, because those are all reimbursement basis, so we spend the money first, and then I have to, so there's always that timing.
Okay,
All right. Good.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That microphone sure doesn't pick up some people very well. I move we buy a new microphone.
I think it is.
She's pretty soft-spoken.
Yeah. But if you get close enough, it's all right.
Yeah. Speaking of Roundabout, I heard a lot of really positive comments about Roundabout.
You have?
Oh, yeah.
So, I think it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, a lot of really
I haven't
positive.
heard any negative, I guess, so.
Okay. Last on the discussion items, a presentation about the Memorial Auditorium. Mr. O'Neill, do you have anything you want to say first, Jim? Or
No, just, we've had our ongoing conversations with what is the future of the auditorium.
Yeah.
You've had a presentation from American Music Festival, which is Steamboat Days, and they're planning on being able to come back with some further discussions the following work session. But Mike also wanted to be able to make a presentation for an alternative structure for management of the facility, which is the purpose for your visit here today.
That's why I'm here. Does everybody have a copy of my proposal?
That's in the packet.
Yeah, it's here.
Do you have one to put up on?
She's gonna switch it, yeah.
I'm Mike O'Neill. I'm current operations manager, technical director down at BMA. I'm also the owner and operator of Thunder and Lightning Productions. It's a sound and light company as well as a mobile staging, full production company here in Southeast Iowa. I'm a 1990 3 graduate of BHS. I attended a recording and live sound school in Minneapolis, Minnesota called Music Tech at the time. It's now called the McNally Smith College of Music. It's moved from Minneapolis to St. Paul. I attended that and graduated with a degree in recording and live sound. After that, I traveled on the road for 5 years with multiple bands as a sound technician as well as the road manager. Understand a lot of the duties that come with bands coming in, their requests, their requirements, and stuff that they look for from buildings and venues when they come in. I worked at a couple Iowa casinos as sound and light technicians as well, with more experience with working with entertainers and bands coming in with more requirements and stuff like that. Over the course of 20 years, I've run a lot of shows, helped put them on, done production for them. I have a very good understanding of what it takes to put on a show, from small shows to large shows. Currently a technical director for Civic Music for the past 5 seasons. Before VenueWorks took over the building, I was asked by the city to help run the building between the current Michael Courtney running the building and VenueWorks signing the contract. I was asked to come in and just run it, to take care of the shows, make sure the shows got handled, everything was taken care of. So I've been in the building for a long time. I feel that I'm equipped with the efficiency and effectively to manage the building. I love the building. I believe in the building. I think there's a big, strong future in that building. Some of my goals and my visions for the Memorial Auditorium, the Port, and the Depot. One, I would create an LLC to run the properties under, so it would be separate from anything else from my sound company or anything. Some of the things I would like to do, I would like to present some local shows down there for free to the public, where we just raise revenue from bar and concessions. We've done this just not that long ago down there. We did an outside show. We had 3 bands. We had probably between 500 and 800 people show up to this. We probably did $7,000 in bar sales and just in alcohol sales that just went back into the building. Some of the other things that I would like to do down there, car shows. We have the best parking lot in this town. It is a gorgeous parking lot. It doesn't get any better with the Mississippi River right next to it. As well as more bands, some craft shows, regional touring shows, some more business meetings and trade shows. I'd like to start with smaller bands, groups, bring them in and grow it. Maybe one day a Broadway show. The overall is to increase the number of events at BMA, market them, and the people will come. As they say, if you build it, they will come. Some of the things that I've noticed working down at the auditorium is the building is technically challenged. There are things that people come into that building for meetings that they want, projectors and screens and stuff like that, that it needs some upgrading to make it a little bit more sellable to customers coming in. And that's what within my vision is. One of the big things for me would be digital signage throughout the building. In the auditorium, you're staring at the stage. On each side, there's the blue doors. I would love to see 2 big screens on each side of the stage that you can use for multiple things. One, signage for advertising for upcoming shows that are coming into the auditorium. When you're sitting there, you have an hour between when you walk into a show and the show starts. You can have all your shows or events that are coming up right in front of the people. So you have 1,000 people in there, or 1,200 like we just had with the Texas Tenors with the Civic Music, that those people are sitting there staring at the stage, and this just stuff that's could be hugely important. A big income maker would be selling those advertisements to local businesses. They could advertise on those screens as well. Again, people are staring at those for an hour before a show. intermission, they're looking at it for another 15 to 30 minutes. As well as that, you can have bigger, larger meetings in there. You can put their PowerPoints up on those. It's just besides the screen that's in the center of the stage, you can have those up as well. I'd like to put 2 down in the lower lobby, so as people come into the building, they see some of the same stuff. They can see upcoming shows, they can see advertisement. Anything you can get out to people to see what's coming up is gonna be a selling point, and they might buy more tickets to more events. I kind of talked about the projectors and screens in the banquet room. The banquet rooms are great, they're decent size, but there's no technology down there. People come in there and they want to have a meeting or any kind of presentation, they would have to bring in their own projector and own screen. I think that would be a huge selling point for people to come in and rent the banquet rooms, is if they had technology. As the operations manager, the tables down there, they're old, they're in rough shape, they need to be replaced. And then just general improvements, anything from painting to whatever, just to make the building look a little bit better. It's an old building, it needs a little tender love and care. My proposal specifics, all the employees, all staff, booking events, operations, technical management, stage management, basic housekeeping would be taken care of through the LLC. The LLC would pay the utility bills, insurance is required by the city, all employees' wages, benefits, operation costs as they're currently, as VenueWorks is doing right now. The LLC would obtain the liquor license. The city would provide a subsidy of $320,000 for 3 years. This would include the LLC paying the utility bill. So it would be taking care of everything down there. Everything that I just talked about, from the digital signage and everything else, would be in the $50,000 for capital improvements. And then at the end of the year, all the money from rent, alcohol sales, concessions, and everything else would come back to the city. Some of the benefits of the proposal that I'm submitting here is the seamless transition from VenueWorks to LLC, all the experienced staff to remain. Everybody that I have down there right now, they know how to run the building, they know how to run the bar, they know how to clean it. We know how to, all the stagehands they already know it all. They're all willing to stay. From me talking with them, if we run it, that they would stay on with me. I have a positive relationship with the current community groups, Civic Music, Snow Bowl, Steamboat Days, some of the promoters and artist agents. Good working relationship with the public works staff. They're great guys. I can call them and ask them a question, and they've helped me out in the last couple of years lots of times with stuff. The other thing is I would need no training on running the building, being down there for 2 years plus. I ran the building, I shouldn't say all, most of the quirks about the building, what it takes to keep it running, from turning the boiler on to shutting it off, AC, turning fans on. Just, we can hit the ground running and keep the building going from day one. In conclusion, I'm here to provide management, operation, and marketing services for the properties. I believe I possess the knowledge and experience to successfully manage and market the facilities. That's all I've got, and I'd like to thank you for your time. Any questions?
I note that here you say the proposal specifics that you would employ all staff, book events, operations, technical management. But what experience do you have in booking events and working employees, et cetera?
All the employees down there, as the operation manager, technical director, I've hired all my operations staff that's currently down there, the stage manager, my stagehands, I've hired them all currently. Everybody that works down there in those positions, I've worked them. I've helped with the bar and know how all that works. taken all the tips trainings and everything on that. So hiring the people, like I said, most of the people that are down there, I was involved in hiring them. Booking shows, I've booked, at some of the casinos, I've helped book multiple acts. I've done all the help read the contracts, negotiate the contracts, negotiated the deal on the price. I've done all of it. I feel like I could do it again.
What would you do different than Venue Works? They obviously were not able to get the job done.
VenueWorks, as an employee of VenueWorks, you know, they're a good company, but they don't understand our market. Our town isn't the town that you go out and bring in. I'll throw out the Pat Benatar show. It was on a Wednesday. It was an expensive show, and it was an acoustic show. People in Burlington aren't gonna go see an acoustic show on a Wednesday night for that kind of money. If it would have been a full rock show, if you will, that people are gonna go to work tired or have too much to drink and they're gonna go to work the next day and be okay with that, as long as they're gonna go see a good show, it's one thing, but we're a smaller market, you need to understand what people will go see. I don't think we should go after those big, huge, expensive acts. I think we should concentrate on the smaller ones, the $5,000, the $10,000 ones, get people in the door, get a revenue built up, and when we can afford, or if we can afford to bring in bigger acts, we do it then. We just don't come out of the gate booking $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 acts. Because when you book a $40,000 act, you have production on top of that, you have all these extra costs, so now it's a $50,000 show. That's hard to put down there when you only have 2,000 seats. Your ticket prices need to be $40, $50 to even break even just to pay the band. That's hard to do, and people aren't gonna pay that.
I think Venue Works wanted 250,000, and you want 320, but you're including the utilities, and the utilities are about 70,000 a year.
7.6.
Okay, I guess on one way I like that better because I think the person paying the utilities and the person in controlling the thermostat should be the same person.
Absolutely.
And guess I didn't care for that. But I guess what I would like to see, because I feel like we're looking at two different managements here, you know, what are you gonna use the 250,000 for? I mean, I'd like it to be broke down, and I don't know that anybody else feels this way, but on who you're paying, and then I'd like to see what Steamboat Days is doing with the 250,000, because I kind of feel like you are paying more wages, and they were doing more with maybe some volunteer work, so I would like to compare those.
I would be paying more in wages, but I guess I feel that people that are getting paid to do their job are gonna take more pride in their job. They're going to, the place is gonna be cleaner. They're gonna, when the end of the night is done, they're gonna help pick up. When you do everything on volunteer work, people don't wanna be there
And I don't
for-
know if it's all volunteer, but I guess I know where that $70,000 difference is the utility, but the 250, I guess I
Well,
would
there's-
like to
with-
understand what these two different groups are using the 250,000 for.
With me,
because
I
that's-
was looking, there's about $20,000 in insurance from the liquor license, the building insurance, and everything else. I think between what VenueWorks has, just in part-time labor and full-time labor, there'd be about $140,000 in wages. I was figuring about $40,000 in marketing costs, and then just $50,000 to, I mean, anything from office supplies to cleaning supplies to day-to-day operations. You put those together with the $76,000, and that's where I come up with the 320.
Okay.
And so you're anticipating from year one to year two, $120,000 on the positive side, so you go to.
With the VenueWorks numbers right now, with the profit that they brought in, they're bringing in about $150,000 in profit between rent and concessions. I would like to keep the concessions the same. I would still like to do the food. I would be okay with doing the food away with, like for weddings and stuff, where if they wanted to bring in their own food and not do the catering thing, but I would like to keep the concessions, so like if we're bringing in a show, that I could still sell walking tacos or whatever else to keep the food license down there, just because I think it's a good revenue maker.
Yeah,
But-
right. But I think that's one of the things that detracted from the auditorium, is that people couldn't bring in their.
No, and I think for like weddings and stuff, I think we should allow them to, you know, if they don't want to bring in a licensed caterer, you know, I think we should allow that. I would just like to be able to allow, or to be able to keep the food license if I were to run it
Your
on my
productions.
side to increase it. So, like I said, they're making $150,000. I guess I'm hoping at the end of the first year, you know, $100,000 that could come off the subsidy for the next year. So the next year would be $220,000.
So what's the status of your LLC application, or are you?
I haven't started it. I have my company for Thunder and Lightning Productions. It's not a huge. It's about $400 or $500. I would front that myself to start my own LLC.
It's not that big a deal, is it?
No, it's really not. I have a company that I've worked with that I did my sound company under. You basically pay them, give them the information, they fill out all the paperwork, send it into the state. So, like I said, it's not a big deal to start that, but like I said, without presenting this to you folks and waiting to hear back a response on that, there's no sense to start an LLC if I'm not gonna continue on with it.
Good point.
So,
Okay.
I really like that, you know the building, you've been there for a while, and buildings that big and that old really do require a lot of,
they take some finessing. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some quirks that, you know, you walk in, it's kind of like Fonzie, you know, you walk in and you kick the jukebox in and start working. There's some things like that down there that, you know, you gotta talk nice to it and.
yeah. Well, I stood in the freight elevator for a little bit, trying to get some stuff upstairs.
It can be a little tricky.
Yeah.
Now, you just said Nick doesn't understand who Fonzie is, so you're
Oh.
gonna have
Terrible.
We'll get you a tape next year. Any other questions, or?
I don't have any further questions.
How would liquor license work? We currently have an arrangement where Steamboat Days has a liquor license for the port, and Venue Works does for the auditorium, and then that has to be vacated for 2 weeks during the Steamboat Days event. How are you proposing that get handled?
As far as the Steamboat Days,
Uh-huh.
I don't have a problem with it continue on the same way that it
So-
has with Venue Works. I mean, if I was assuming that they're gonna want it for the 2 weeks again. It's inconvenient for Venue Works to leave the building because we can't book anything or do anything down there, but it's a community event. If we need to vacate the building, shrink our liquor license down to the liquor cage, and they take over for the rest of the week, it's worked for the last 3 years. I don't know why it couldn't continue.
What about for the port building itself?
I have some ideas about that. It might cause some waves. I can either tell you what those are now if you wanted to hear them, or I could wait to see if we went any farther.
I don't know. I'd hate for you to give out, some good secrets if we're not serious
Well,
about.
it's some options. I have 3 different options on the port, and
Okay.
one of them's not gonna make a group very happy, but there's an option in there that, I'll just tell you, there's 3 options that I see. If I were to run the port, we could run it as it is right now, where, except instead of the city booking it, that I would book the event at the auditorium, then they would have to go to Steamboat Days, talk to them about the liquor license, get that arranged. It's not convenient for our customers to have to go to 2 people for one event. That's one option. The second option is that Steamboat Days were to just take over the whole port. They would book it, they would keep the rent from it, and they just take care of the whole thing, set up, tear down, clean in it, and they take it and just run it. The third is I take it all, take the rent, take over the liquor license.
Which is obviously, from your perspective, the easiest to handle, and
It is, and Options 2 and 3 are the best for the customer. If the customer if it's a one-stop shop, if they can go to one place and book their event, talk about the liquor, get everything from setup to tear down handled, it's just that much better for the client. If they have to go to 2 different places as they do right now, it's kind of a pain. I mean, we have people walking into the auditorium and they're looking for Steamboat Days because, or this or that, or they think we're running the port when we don't. It's confusing for them. It's confusing for us. So, like I said, I think options 2 or 3 are the best. 2 is better for Steamboat Days, 3 would be better for the port. It would be, you know, if they would be willing to take over the whole port, the setup, tear down, cleaning, and keep the liquor license, it takes that off the plate of the auditorium.
But that kind of defeats the purpose of running the 3 groups as one unit.
Right.
Right, yeah.
I mean, the 3 facilities is
Right.
one unit.
I mean, it would still take the responsibility off the city as far as running the port, because now the city wouldn't have anything to do with it. The Steamboat Days would just take the rent, they would book it, and keep the liquor license.
So does
But-
that adjust your cost to the city any, if that, with the different options?
It could. I mean, there was about $6,000 in labor from what I was provided for the port. So you're not really looking at a whole lot of change there, so.
The other side of that, the revenue off of the liquor license, you don't know where that nets out under the 2 different scenarios.
Right, and I don't have the
It'll
numbers
some-
for the port as far as the liquor goes, so I don't know.
It's
what-
not a tremendously large number, but it would offset somewhat that savings. But you all, as a council, are the ones that are tasked with coming up with a solution, and you have to do it quickly. Any group that wants to put something in place cannot get that done overnight, to get the liquor license done, to get everything set up at the state level that you need to have done for approvals.
And-
With a January 1 date coming up, it's fairly necessary to get a decision made. As we talked, I don't know from your perspective, but as we talked with the Steamboat Days side, mid-October is kind of a timeline. They need to know what's going on if they're moving forward with us to get things and ratcheted up in place to get going.
The liquor license is important to me, but like, if come January 1, when whoever takes over the building, there's a show in there 5 days later that's huge. It's a civic music show, it's a ballet show. The call for the show for stagehands is 15 people plus techs and everything else. To me, that is more important than the liquor license. I would feel much, if the liquor license didn't come till mid-January or end of January, I don't think that's as big a deal to me as making sure that the show's taken care of.
But
That's,
you know the people to hire for that, to bring in?
I already have them.
Yeah.
They are on my staff right now.
That means a lot.
Yeah, it really does. When do we,
You need to make a decision very quickly, again.
Yeah.
Steamboat Days has a contract that they've already drafted a good, not all of it, but a good chunk of the details that need to be done and be part of an agreement for consideration between us. Haven't seen that yet for what we would have with Mike. It would have to be it would be a different contract arrangement and maybe would require a different process to get to that contract. Steamboat Days has helped. They have someone on part of their group that is an attorney, so it kind of helps with getting stuff
Right.
drafted. My guess is you've just heard from Mike. It would be kind of hard to make a decision tonight, but I would think that in 2 weeks that you would probably want, I don't know if there's additional information that you would like from Mike between now and then. So you have some representatives from Steamboat Days. I think that they've heard some of the things that you'd like to see in terms of how is that money being used in their proposal. I don't know if there's any other information you'd like to hear from them to try to weigh out or balance the 2 different alternatives that you have here before you and make a decision on which one you're going to move forward with.
I think they're really very different.
But you all are going to need to make a decision which way to move forward at the next meeting. Not that I don't know which one's the right one. I mean, you're right, they're very different groups, and they both have some different perspectives about what they're trying to accomplish, and are going about it in two very different ways. And I think both of them have an ability to be successful for different things.
I agree.
So that's gonna just really be a perspective of which way does the council want to go and move forward with, if you're saying that, yes, we do want to do one of these two. And it may be that you're saying that you don't want to do either of these options
That's
too.
the other option. You're going to advise us accordingly.
All depends on what your point is, or your purpose is.
I'll tell you that later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Is there any additional information you want from Mike to be able to be ready for 2 weeks from now?
Well,
Or
I
for
don't know.
I
the
think
other group?
If you have a contract proposal from that group, you need to have a contract proposal from his perspective too, wouldn't you, in order for us to?
It would be beneficial.
Yeah.
From that, I'm not sure, if Mike, if you're in a position to draft that, or if you're wanting us to try to put something in front of you based off of what we've seen off of the other, I mean, sorry, but, I mean, it's a much different proposal, but at least as a boilerplate to work off of
Yeah, that's
between that
really-
and Venue Works.
It's really not fair to.
Well, we have Venue Works contract too to work
Yeah.
off of.
too. That's.
We don't want one that's that long.
No.
Some of the details that I'm not sure of is how to do your net revenues. Coming up with what that language looks like is one that
Yeah.
I'm gonna struggle with how that gets defined. Steamboat Days has done a pretty good job of trying to define out legacy events versus non-legacy, and how the splits go on revenues between the two to cover, I mean, recognizing that they have employee costs, and so that's some of the, if we talk about net revenue, for example, on liquor, is the staff time included on that? What's the definition of what net revenues is? So
And that's, if
we need
to come up with something better, I'm open.
that's something that's been left completely open at this point, so getting those details worked out needs done.
Mrs. Anderson has a wonderful thing about the person who runs the thermostat should be paying the bill.
Well, and at the same point, I think from Steamboat Days' perspective, they were willing to go either way with their proposal. That, I think that was staff that said it was okay to leave it this way. That wasn't anything that they're
It does
trying to
make
get out
me-
of.
I mean, I think you'd be more,
I think that they would adjust their proposal and just,
yeah, then they'd be the same in that way.
The other total issue is the whole auditorium period. There are a number of people out there in the community that think spending $1 million over the next 3 years to keep that place open is a highly questionable proposition. So,
And I guess I wonder, and maybe I need to look at those contracts better, but what happens if you don't have the money to pay all the overhead? I mean, if we're giving money to pay the overhead, that's their budget, right?
Yeah.
So we have our next work session, we've got to come up with something.
you have to, yeah, you
Well, I
have to
think
make
we
a
need to
decision and say
compare
who
'em, I
you're
think.
gonna move forward with.
Yeah.
You know,
It's hard for both groups, and, Mike has worked a lot with a lot of the different groups that are down there. Steamboat Days has done the same, and they both have some very solid strengths that go with them.
We need both of you back.
It'd be
here
nice.
In 2 weeks, so we can, and anything you can talk with Jim or staff, or give us more information, or
Yeah.
flesh out details, would be appreciated.
Well, I certainly think it would be a good idea for Mike to have some sort of a contract to come, whether it's something we provide or whether it's something you can get for, I don't know, however.
My guess is it's gonna be one that, we're gonna need input from him, but it's one that we'll have our attorney draft.
Council, what do you think? Are we ready to move on? You got
I
enough,
haven't decided which
enough
way to go.
information? Well, I haven't either. Anything else you want to say about that?
No.
Okay, Nick, do you want to say anything about that? Nope. Okay. Okay, we're ready to finish this off. Eric, anything? Nick, do you have anything on any other subject?
Of course.
Couple things. For one, Agency and West Burlington Avenue, I don't know if you've driven through that intersection, but the southbound traffic on West Burlington Avenue, the configuration is a little bit
Yeah.
wonky, I
Yeah,
guess.
no
It's not
kidding.
really necessarily a technical term, but we are going to be flipping that tomorrow.
Okay.
I know I've heard some complaints about that. Just a heads up that that'll change. Another thing that's pretty good, on Wednesday, which today's Monday, 2 days from now, I'll be delivering 6 more plows to be painted by the Burlington Community School District.
Cool.
6
that.
others, of which 3 are going to Notre Dame, 3 are at Great River, are currently on site, and they'll be painted. And
Oh, good.
so I'll have 12. I
Great.
had 3 last year, so
That's a
I'm
nice
pretty
program.
excited.
I like
I
that.
had the paint donated, so.
I like that.
And lastly, Fireball Run, it starts tomorrow at about 2:30 or 3 or something like that. You'll see traffic in the downtown area. It'll be very limited. Parking, you've already seen parking cones. There's a lot of parking cones up. I don't know how many in total, like 275 or something like that.
They're everywhere.
I didn't know we had that many.
But you will see Jefferson Street pretty much be inaccessible. But it will be open back up Wednesday afternoon, so.
Okay.
Fireball Run leaves what time?
Wednesday morning, I think there's a parade. I thought that was advertised. I think it's at 9:30 or 10 or something like that.
It was 7 to 9.
9? Yep. 9.
Okay. So right after that,
Thank you.
and it won't happen within 10 minutes.
No. Your police, fire, you have anything? No. Okay,
I'm good.
okay.
I want to say something about Fireball Run too.
Good.
I'm excited about it. Of course, I'm down on Jefferson, but I guess I wanted to say something about the mayor too, because I know there was, sometimes people saying maybe he shouldn't be on there, but I tell you what, I've already watched some of the streaming and, I've heard him already say things in favor of Burlington, and
He's a good salesman.
I think that with his witty personality, we're going to get a lot of airtime. And
Yep.
I think it's a big plus. That's all.
I agree.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything you want
Oh, one other thing,
Oh, yes.
the wine walk's Friday too.
That's right.
How did I?
Well, I
to-
just remember they were both in the same week.
Is that 5 to 7 or 6 to 8?
I think I just,
5 to 8?
yeah.
5 to 8.
I can drink a lot of wine.
So a lot going on downtown this week.
And the last farmer's market is Thursday.
It is.
Darn, fall is here.
So I think you're signed up. I can't remember if anyone else was from council for a manufacturer's appreciation lunch,
Yes.
Friday, October 6th. In regards to those snow plows, Nick is gonna have them out on display at City Week on Saturday, October 14. City Day at the park is 1 to 4 that afternoon, so please make sure that you have that on your calendar and keep track of that. That same day, the Y is having an open house from 11:30 to 1:30 to highlight the renovations that they've done on their building. They've received $100,000 through the state RIF grant, matched that with $50,000 from the foundation. I don't know if you still sit on that board or not, but a nice project that really transformed the entry into the facility.
The whole place looks different inside.
Yeah.
It looks a lot
Oh, I didn't see
newer
that.
and more
Yeah.
modern.
Yeah.
So if you get a chance, that's a neat thing to be able to participate as they do that little open house on that. That's all I have.
Okay. Thanks, you folks.
Good evening.
Thanks, council. Good night.
Jimmy did a good job.